Hi, Democrats. Today is Wednesday, January 11th, and it's time for the Chair's Daily Live. Happy Wednesday. Well, I've been watching, as you know, I watched the speeches of the folks who were sworn in this week to start the new legislative session. So we had, our legislators were sworn in earlier in the month, and this week we had our statewide officers sworn in. And so Governor Stitt made a speech. That's all I'm going to say, since it wasn't really tethered to reality. Governor Stitt made a speech. Ryan Walters gave us some vague priorities. Gettner Drummond was very specific on some of the things that he's going to be working on. And that's what I choose to focus on. I have been involved in politics kind of loosely, since I was 18, very loosely. But I got really involved in politics in 2016, 2017. And at that time, there are a lot of to the Capitol and saying we've got to do something. They've been gradually defunding education, gradually defunding, starving teachers to death, not paying them enough, blah, blah, blah. Then in 2018, we had the teacher walkout. And at that point, because I had been out of school for a very long time and I don't have children, I started caring more.
Something happened and Alicia just got kicked out. So while she's logging back in, I'll jump in here for a moment. First of all, this is a broadcast about education, particularly the challenges being faced right now. So I see that she's back, and here you go.
Don't know what happened. So I started caring more because I started knowing the teachers. I started knowing the teachers who was concerned enough to put their names on the ballot, to walk from Tulsa to Oklahoma City, to be at the Capitol. And so it's kind of a big deal. So I've been watching, and it's gross that we have continually defunded education. And there's a direct correlation. In 2011, Oklahoma was ranked number 17 in education. And today we're ranked number 48 or 49, depending on the poll that you look at. Well, I don't have kids and I graduated a long time ago. So I said, you know what, I want to talk about this, but I want to bring on some subject matter experts who can talk about what it's like in education and what is happening. I don't know what's happening, guys. Sorry. Talk about education and that kind of thing. And so I've invited folks from all over the spectrum, but today they're kind of lumped in the same part of the state. I've invited Representative Jacob Rosecrans, who is a former teacher, now a current legislator. Hi, Jacob.
How's it going? Can everybody hear me?
I can.
So okay, good. Because you're cutting a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be one of those. It's going to be one of those weird days.
I hope everybody else could hear him. And then I invited Mary Brannon, who is a former school counselor out of Purcell. Is that right, Mary? You're muted.
Yes, I was at Purcell for a quarter of a century, 25 years.
That's a lot. And Mary has run for Congress 3 times.
It'll be coming up 2024 will be 3 times.
Okay. And so I'm grateful that you're running, that you've run, and that you're giving people something to talk about. Okay, we're having all kinds of issues today. This should be fun. So you're coming at it from a not necessarily in the classroom perspective, but as a counselor, when you look at what's going on in our education system, tell me, just like first blush, what do you think? What are you thinking?
It's frightening. When you think that we could have elected Jenna and we got Ryan Walters. When I retired, McLean isn't a very prosperous county, So, but it's a good county. I wouldn't want to have taught any place else. But I was buying my own supplies, and I just feel like we cannot have money go to vouchers. There's not enough money anyway. And when they talk about how we're not involving the parents, we would love to have the parents' involvement. When we would have parent-teacher conferences, they won't show up. I don't know what to do, because not only am I a teacher, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and I'm a concerned citizen. And now they're trying to say that a couple of the Republicans, and Jacob might be able to speak to this, they want teachers to not even have a college degree, a high school diploma. Isn't that right, Jacob?
In part, yes. It basically yes and no. So the way that works with the adjunct deal, I had to do a lot of research on it because, I didn't want to be too reactive. But it takes an already existing program. Basically, it doesn't help bring our best and brightest into the classroom. It does make it easier for somebody with no certification whatsoever to not only be in the classroom, but to stay in the classroom. That's what it is. Now, the adjunct itself, the program itself, I don't know of that many adjuncts out there. And I also know, as you can tell, I always try to find either, I'm not going to say a silver lining. I just try to find out why somebody's doing something, especially if it's authored by somebody who I respect. And so apparently it was asked for by some superintendents because we're in emergency situations. So my idea was, hey, why don't we put a sunset on this? And what that basically means for all y'all listening out there is to end it once it acts like the Band-Aid it is. But that wasn't done. And so now, for all intents and purposes, yes, we've made it easier with that bill for folks without certification to become teachers in the classroom.
And what concerns me is the school district will decide what's a special learner, a special teacher. But what if they want to come in with a whole bunch of religious? That's what concerns me. There's not an oversight of it.
No, there's not. It should be concerning. Again, that's a Band-Aid. That should have been seen as a Band-Aid. It should have had a sunset of a couple of years. That way we could dig back in and be like, okay, let's not have to go that route again. Let's fix the teacher pipeline. Let's ask teachers what they need to stay in the classroom and then provide those things. And that's not what we're doing. As a matter of fact, we're openly, not me, but the people that were elected to lead our state are openly trying to destroy our public schools on every level. That means with words, that means with votes, that means with legislation, that means with you name it. I mean, they're going as far as saying things are happening in schools that aren't, fear mongering, all of that kind of thing. So you're looking at a situation right now beyond crisis point. But we already tried to warn people. We were like, hey, these people are not hiding what they're saying about our public schools. They are openly doing these things. They are openly saying that there's cat litter in the rooms. They're openly saying things like there's indoctrination on a very large scale in our public schools. They're openly saying these things, and it's working for folks who are susceptible to fear. And unfortunately, that's a whole lot of the base of the folks who elected these folks into power. And so how do we fix this? I don't know. So we're here to talk.
You know what would fix the teacher problem? Give them a livable wage. Give them some respect. Give them classroom supplies they need. Limit how many are in a class instead of keep making it bigger and bigger. Because when you have larger classes, you don't have one-on-one. You don't have time to deal with the person who's trying to disrupt the class. I think this is just a step backwards. When you're saying you can teach, then what they're saying is when you've got a 4-year degree, or like me, have 2 masters, that's just a piece of paper. And it sure isn't. You're a teacher.
So Scott and I have been saying for weeks, we need to pay attention to what they're saying because they're keeping those promises. When the governor in his speech says, I am for school choice, he might as well have had a banner and some airplanes flying by that says, I'm pushing vouchers. because that's what I heard when he said it, and we know because of his history. When they say we want parents to be able to decide what their kid gets to learn, they are demeaning and devaluing what professional teachers are doing. When Ryan Walters says we want to keep our best and brightest in the classroom as teachers, um, yet they're okay with teachers not having degrees, and he's pushing vouchers. What he's saying is that if you want to make more money, go work for a school that has vouchers. Or at least that's how I hear it. I'd like to hear what you guys hear.
Well, I think the fact that Epic stole so much of my taxpayer money with a charter school, why isn't that being investigated? Are they paying any of that back? It's not like it's just a rumor. There were 2 people indicted. That's what concerns me. You don't have oversight in charter schools like you do in public schools. And public taxes need to go to public schools. If they want to go to a private school, they can pay for it. That's my opinion.
Well, and I agree with that. Good news is we do have a little bit of pushback with the election of Gentner Drummond, because you have to understand, we got very close to having a dictatorship in this state. Oh, that's not news. It shouldn't be if you've been paying attention at all. The governor, the State Department of Education, the House, the Senate, all under Republican leadership, and with John O'Connor, who was a puppet of Kevin Stitt, as the AG. Well, now with Gentner Drummond, that kind of messed up everything. And so what that's going to provide us, though, is some pushback and a check on the power, which is what you should want. You shouldn't want all this ultimate power in the hands of one dude, which in 2018 still surprises me more than anything. The folks I work with at the Capitol who say they're conservative voted to give ultimate power, to Governor Kevin Stitt. And now they're dealing with it too. I mean, come on, think about the biggest fights hasn't been between Democrats and Republicans. It's been between Republicans and Republicans. And I foresee that to continue on as well this year. Just to give you a hint, what we're kind of hearing at the Capitol, vouchers are coming. Vouchers are coming. It won't be the same type of bill you saw last year, because rural Republicans over on the House side won't support that. So what's going to happen is that you're going to see some type of incentive to try to get their votes. I don't know what that's going to look like, but that's what's going to happen. And it's going to be an ongoing battle. And so that's what we're seeing. I have a few questions. Do you want me to answer them as they pop up?
That'll work. Sure.
So our vouchers for charter or private schools, they're not charter. Charters are public schools in this state. At least they're classified as that. Vouchers will be for a private school. And that's the big issue. That's why rural Republicans have kind of helped us Democrats push back against these things, because there's not private schools out in those areas for the most part. But what works for those folks who say who voted for these folks who are saying, let's go for school choice, which is a wonderful name for what it's really not. What it's doing, it's just taking your taxpayer dollars and paying for somebody's religious education, for all intents and purposes. And so, but what you're going to see is that they have, because of that fact, they have teamed up with us to try to push back. So I think the big goal, and it's been the big goal since the last voucher bill did not pass out of the Senate, how do you get those folks on board? And so, unfortunately, we're going to see a big, huge battle, and it's going to embroil everything, because whatever priority the House wants to see, whatever priority the Senate wants to see, and whatever priority the governor wants to see, those are where the battles kind of happen. The good news is that I don't know if there's the votes still to pass those in the House right now. So there's some. I mean, hey, that's a little bit of good news, right? So I try to keep it positive. But so that's, and answer to that question, it's for private schools. Also, there's other states that have been doing this. Arizona's the most recent one that passed a huge voucher bill to basically just open it up to private schools. And, I guess that's the big idea. But my problem is, I went to a Catholic school, but I get the point. I get the separation. I get the fact that Catholic school was well-funded with private donors because it's a private ding-dang school. I mean, what do you want? That's the whole point behind what a private school is compared to a public school. So it just blows me away that folks think, well, no, that's the answer. But it's a bigger picture. It's a much bigger picture. So when you have failing schools, and let's be honest, whenever you're trying to say if a school is passing or failing by a test score, which is a horrible way to try to see if a school itself is passing or failing, or if a teacher is teaching something, or whatever else you want to say. When you have that base, and then you could say, oh, well, then that school's failing. And most likely they're going to be in the inner city areas or the rural areas. That's the way it kind of works, where poverty is. And then you could say, well, here's a voucher to a better school, or a better school, however you want to call it. So that's the whole point. Yes, the idea is to defund. Then the idea is to push teachers out. Then the idea is to say, oh, that's a failing school. Here's a voucher. Boom. We're going to make money off this somehow. The biggest plan is to privatize education. I know I sound like I'm a crazy person, but it's been done in other states, and it's going to happen here. We're on the front lines of a big battle.
The reason I say private and charter are the same is because Epic was listed as Epic Charter School, which was private. So that's what I'm trying to make sure people understand, that if it's not public school, it's one of the others, and we can't fund it with public money.
Right. Well, was there other questions that we wanted to answer, or do you want me to just kind of go down the topics? What do you want to do here, Madam Chair?
I have a question. Governor Stitt said he was going to get teachers 6 figures. What's going on that?
Bull crap.
Yeah. I know.
I mean, let's be honest. It's one of those things. People I work with at the Capitol love saying they're going to do something and then make it so out of the reach of regular people that they're not going to be able to do that. That is a thing to say they did something. It's going to be very rare to get that done. It has to have matching funds from a district. They're not going to do that, most likely. So it's just more smoke and mirrors, which is what we've gotten used to from this administration. What I can't believe is that Oklahomans, by and large, decided to say, oh, yeah, this state's going the right way. Count me in for some more of that. It's not, these people aren't even hiding it. So folks who are really fighting for their public schools out in the rural small towns, those folks lined up to ruin their towns. That's what they did. That's exactly what they did. About the homeschool issue, the governor supports them. I don't have a problem with somebody who thinks they can homeschool, but I don't think there should be anything done with the state either way. You know what I'm saying? So I don't find it to even really be an issue, except for the fact that the governor thinks that should be counted as this on the same level as public education taught by actual qualified educators, which is absolutely 100% is not. But again, you want to homeschool? Be my guest, but please do not try to say that it's the same level of education you're going to get from a public school or even a charter school, honestly. So I don't see it being an issue, but governor's making it an issue. He's drawing that in. He's making it to where on the board, there's a homeschool parent that he decided to put on the board of education. I guess to get that perspective. The homeschoolers I know don't want anything to do with government, period. So I'm surprised by that. There's been bills to fund them with tax dollars, yes, but the homeschoolers I know don't want to deal with that because they know, not by and large, but there's factions, as there is with everything else in the world. There's factions within the homeschool community. There's some that absolutely want nothing to do with government, no tax dollars, no nothing. That's why they were against the vouchers that extended out to them last year. They didn't want it because they know red tape's coming behind if they accept that type of thing. And so that's what we're kind of looking at right there with the homeschool question. I don't know if anything like that will pass because, again, they're not unified. There's not a homeschool unification. They're a bunch of different factions. So I guess we'll see.
My thought on homeschool and vouchers and private schools, this is all about school choice. Mm-hmm. If you make the choice to take your kid out of public school and send them somewhere else, you have that right. That choice is yours as a parent, but I think you should pay for it. You should pay for it. I have many friends who went to charter and private schools. Yay for them. But their parents made it work without robbing the local schools of the funding. And that's what my big concern is that we are dooming the kids who can't somehow manage to get into a private school or a charter school, frankly. We're dooming them to underfunded education.
Well, yeah, it's segregation. And it's been going on for a long time. And to be honest with you, in other states, it's a bipartisan push. It's not here so far, thank goodness. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. We have to keep unified against this. But at the same time, at what point do you look at people in rural areas and be like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're harming yourself by voting for people that aren't even hiding what they're trying to do. And the reason why you're doing that, I guess, is because you believed all the crap that they're sending out about Democrats. Okay. What a Democrat in Oklahoma is not even the same as a Democrat in New York City or wherever else, whatever fear factors trying to whatever they're trying to say about Democrats. That's not the way it even works here. Not to mention the Democratic Party is a big tent party. You know what I'm saying? It's we accept everybody. And I would like to think that the conservative GOP does that same thing, but they sure the heck don't. So at this particular point, there's a big battle. But I mean, at this, I keep saying, I'm like, you guys voted for these people that are going to harm your towns. It just is what it is.
You know what's interesting about that in Oklahoma, no matter how hard I work, where we are right now is in a lot of rural communities, there aren't a lot of Democrats.
That's true.
So like, what are you afraid of? You know, there aren't a lot of Democrats in the rural communities to indoctrinate your students. So what's happening, I've been traveling to rural communities and talking to people about it. And they're like, well, we don't have one now, but insert religion here is opening a school down the street.
That's right.
And so what's getting ready to happen is we are going to have tons and tons of religious schools.
Yes.
And I'm going to put schools in quotes as well. Religious schools opening. I'm not anti-religious school, but the way they're popping up, how they are,
yeah.
I am suspect as to the quality and the standards that are going to be taught there.
You hit the nail on the head. That's what I believe is going to be, we call it Christmas tree, whatever the voucher people are going to try to add on to get the votes from the rural people. I think they're going to have something like that in there in order to try to get those votes, because that is true. There's churches all the time that are like, hey, we'll start a school right here down there in the gym, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I guess we're going to see how that's going to all play out. Trust that we're going to fight against this. Trust it is a bipartisan opposition, 100%. But we just need to make sure it continues to be bipartisan opposition. So I will continue to kind of build those bridges and keep them going. But know that this is always the hill I'll die on. It's just something that the school choice conversation, I understand as a parent. I do. I get it. I get what people are trying to say. But why wouldn't you, instead of just saying this school is just horrible and I want to move my kid out, why wouldn't you be more invested in the school your kid's going to in the first place? You know what I mean? Go and see the classroom. Go talk to the teachers. Okay, it's a brand new teacher. Let's figure it out, right? So, yeah, Mary, what do you think?
I'll tell you what I think. The problem is people don't know what they're voting for. I live in the country, and it's rural, and they've always been Republicans, and they're going to vote Republican, and they will color in on the ballot all Republicans. And if you look at the statistics, like it's 2-1. The Republican got 2 votes to all my 1 vote. And it comes out, he got 66% and some change. I got 33% and some change. I don't think they're voting for vouchers. I just think they're voting for Republicans. And they don't know the Republicans now are not Eisenhower. And so until we can get more Democrats voting, it's not going to change. And that bothers me. I don't know what to do to make it change. Because when you've got people like Ryan Walters, when you see that they're banning books, good books, and you see that they want teachers without teaching certificates, that's not fair to the next generation. How will they do on the public stage? They're going to be competing with schools that have actual teachers, and that's not fair to Oklahomans.
No, you hit the nail on the head, Mary. Straight party voting is where we're at. That's why we have the problem that we have. And until folks, and here's the crazy thing, back in the day, Democrats took advantage of it too. But we all can agree now that it needs to go. Probably gonna have to go to a vote of the people, because I don't know any party in power that's gonna say, oh yeah, let's do this. But until we get that changed, you're absolutely right. And And Stitt and Ryan Walters do not have a mandate for school choice because of straight party voting. In my mind, they don't have a mandate. They were elected because they had the R by their name, not because of any words that came out of their mouth. So unfortunately, Republicans in rural areas just voted to just destroy their own towns. Again, like we kind of just said. And so at what point do we just kind of like be like, all right, you did what you did, but quit telling us what to do in urban and suburban areas. How about that? Because that seems to be like kind of the conversation that's happening here. It's just ridiculous.
Well, interesting point when you make the difference between urban and rural. Per the last census, the urban communities in Oklahoma actually had growth where what was it? 73 counties in Oklahoma lost population.
That's right.
People are leaving the rural communities. And I think it's, I know folks who live in rural communities, they like it because it's far out and blah, 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 but they are losing services in Oklahoma. They keep voting, like you said, for the R. It doesn't even have to be the name. They're voting for the R. And the challenge is they're not listening to what the R for a particular race is saying.
That's
and
right.
honestly, I think like I was really happy when Kendra Horn won because I thought we are making progress. And you know what? Since they did the new census, they have gerrymandered that district to where no Democrat will win again.
That's how they're going to carry. That's how they're going to keep power, Mary, and you darn well know it. Great point. And it's what they're going to do to keep that rural voice being the preeminent voice at the Capitol as well, even though population has shrunk. But yeah, let's talk about some of the positivity, right? That's not sustainable. That is not a sustainable model. So what, 25 years or so? we can look forward to having more political balance. No, listen, another thing too, I do want to talk about. We have quite a few new Democrats at the House, and I've gotten to know them. They're all ready to work. It's really, really exciting. And we have a new leader, and this leader, she comes from a background of a district that's red. And so that's going to be really good to have that kind of leadership. It's Representative Cindy Munson. And because that kind of messaging, I think, can help us. And also, you're right, we can do nothing until we get more numbers, period. It is a numbers game. If we have equal numbers in the House, then guess what? We have equal representation when it comes to policy and things like that. But right now, with the gerrymandering situation, yeah, we have 20, even though the 20 of us have those very, very, highly populated urban areas and suburban areas. Suburban, I would say, is more of the battlegrounds, and we all know that. So I think in the future, you're going to see concerted efforts to try to get these suburban areas, kind of like what I did here in my district a little bit. And then also areas within Oklahoma City that really shouldn't have a conservative representing them as well. So we're aware of this. We're working very hard to do the things that are going to have to be done. See, I hear a lot of people asking, well, look what Stacey Abrams did out in Georgia. Where's our Stacey Abrams? Well, Stacey Abrams, she put the work in. And that's the thing. We all say we want to do something, but then we all don't do it. And it's hard. It is hard. We're pulled in all these different directions, going out and getting people to register, likely Democrats to register to vote. That's hard. That's hard. But until that happens, like you alluded to, Mary, nothing can change. Either we get more people to vote for Democrats, or we have less people voting for Republicans, or we just do the math on it. You know what I'm saying? So I try to be hopeful. So 20 years, I'll say 20 years.
Well, no. So the game plan is that we've got to get our message out without, our Democratic shirt, our Democratic hat. We need to get the message out what we stand for.
That's right.
Because what we stand for, when you put it on an initiative petition, when you put it on the ballot and it doesn't have a partisan slant on it, people are voting for our values.
Right.
And so this is but as soon as you put an R by it or a D by it, as soon as you put a D by it, they won't vote for it.
That's right.
That's
Well,
why
yeah,
medical marijuana passed,
There you
because
go.
they had it on the ballot, and it was
Yes.
and it was just an issue. It wasn't Democrat, wasn't Republican, and it passed because people wanted it.
Medical marijuana, Medicaid expansion,
Right.
criminal justice reform, all passed with direct democracy. They all passed by balloted initiatives where people got to hear what the issue was and vote their hearts. And those were all progressive issues.
And so it wasn't Republican or Democrat. It was an issue that you can believe in. I really am going to try hard in 2023 to get Roe v. Wade protections back, because I promise you, Roe v. Wade came because people were dying from back alley abortions. People will begin dying again from back alley abortions. You can't ban abortion. You can only ban safe abortions. And that's what's happening now.
They won't be dying from back alley abortions. They'll be dying from internet abortions, frankly, because we've moved into a different term and people will try to figure it out on the internet. You're right. We will never get to a point where there'll be no abortions. What we should be fighting for is safe, legal, infrequent abortions. And the for me, and I'm sorry you started this, but for me, the big issue with abortion is, if it's something that we really are committed to reducing, then we need to talk about raising minimum wage, reducing the gender pay gap, making sure everybody has access to health care, and that our youth have access to sex education. Because we don't have to look very far. We don't have to look at another country. Just look at what Colorado did in reducing their abortion rates. And that's how they did it.
Look how Kansas did. You know, Kansas is about as red as we are, but they didn't like that they took away their reproductive rights, and they got them back. And that's what I'm counting on.
Well, I was dropping hints to Rep. Rosecrans. I said I was dropping hints to Rep. Rosecrans regarding legislation that I think will reduce abortions more than banning it, right? We need to raise minimum wage, guy.
Oh, I know. Hey, like I said, I just got back from a roundtable discussion about that too. We were talking about how how arts are so important, but also we were talking about how do you couch that to where a conservative would understand that. And we were talking about workforce, because that's all you're going to hear. That's all you're going to hear. That I will say, the Republicans that are in charge of the state, a small percentage are kind of the ones that you think of that are just really far right. The majority are very, 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 very fiscally conservative, extreme, and also very pro-business, which the thing is, if you're truly pro-business, you want to make sure that your employees have everything that they need. We're trying to say, hey, listen, they don't. That's why businesses do not want to come to Oklahoma, especially now that we've become one of the most restrictive towards reproductive rights. No company wants to do that. Companies are multinational. They understand these things. But here's the crazy thing. Those conversations are happening with Stitt and his administration, and I don't think they care. So when they say that they're after top 10, no, what they truly mean is top 10 for either really, really, really conservative issues or bottom 10 for everybody else. That's the kind of leadership that we have, that folks decided back in November was going to be 4 more years of just what they want. Blows me away. Frustrated is not a good word for it, because I'm beyond that now. And then, of course, what this conversation began with was what's happening with our schools. We didn't talk about what happened with our school board yesterday. That's awful. That's awful. That's another slippery slope to dictatorial powers. I made a post about that, said that, because now you're talking about stacking things in your favor. That is not democracy or anything else you want to call attached to freedom. That's not it. That's somebody with power pounding down and telling you how to act and be.
Well, in his speech, he said he is for small government. He's for small government. And then, I don't even know if he got completely off of the Capitol steps before he replaced 4 out of 6 of the members on the Board of Education. So is it small in the number of people who gets to have all the control? Because that's what he's trying to do. That's not small government. It's just not. But
and those 4 are very conservative. They're not people I want on there. I think you should have a balance. And right now, it's like Jacob said, it's turning into a dictatorship.
It is.
Well, he won't be happy until it's that, because all of his actions are moving towards giving one person more and more power. And that's problematic as all get out. But that's where we live. And the fact that he got reelected makes him feel like he has a mandate. Here's the reality. 1, people voted for the R, not the man. 2, a lot of the other statewide officers got more votes than he did. He did not get a mandate. He got to be the governor again because he has an R in front of his name. And we have to do everything we can to make sure that people understand that. It's not because people are so in love with his policies, his practices, his deception, his cronyism. It's because he is running with an R.
That's it. Yeah. So until we really change that, and we got to get ahead of gerrymandering too. So that's probably going to be, that's going to have to be an initiative petition too. Problem is what we're talking about. A lot of GOP leaders know that too. So they're trying a legislative routes to try to make it harder for the people of Oklahoma to have their voice heard. How about that? I mean, you're talking about some slippery slope to I keep using the word dictatorship. Guys, look up the word dictatorship. It's where the power lies with one person.
If you want to expand it, you can say authoritarianism, right?
Yes,
it's either one of those.
Yes. And this should scare the living bejesus out of everybody. I don't care if you see eye to eye with this man's politics. Nobody should have this much power in a representative democracy at all, in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, that's where we're at.
That's where we are.
I think people are just busy and they don't want to research it. And I understand that too. If you've got kids to get to athletics and you're got a job, they just think I'll vote all R because I've always been a Republican and I know that they have my interests at heart when they really don't.
That's right. You're right.
Well, as much as I want to balk about Walters instead talking about indoctrination because it annoys me, what I know is that that's also a national talking point.
It is.
That's not just isolated to Oklahoma. And what we have to do is be careful. For me, I think it's important that we explain that we're not Florida, we're not Texas, we're not Kentucky, we're not some of these places that where these ideas begin, and that we need to trust our legislators and we need to trust our parents on what is important for students in Oklahoma and not be dictated by national talking points. Because that's
I really think that having the R by your name, because that crazy liar, George Santos, they said the only reason he won was because people just, did the R. And then now, all these lies. And so until we can get gerrymandering and straight party voting in control, we've got to keep trying.
Absolutely. You're right. Those two things, until you get that, we're just going to be fighting uphill, whatever you want to call it, whatever analogy you want to use, brushing your teeth while eating Oreos, whatever you want to call it. That's where we're at. And it is frustrating. And people are tired. Common sense folks are almost just about done. My poor teacher friends are just like, oh my gosh, my best advice to them is just like, keep loving on your kids. Because that's really what a teacher, that's the biggest thing. All the red tape's always existed. You know what I'm saying? Keep loving on your kids, keep teaching them. And the real problem I have with the misinformation is the fact that now, if you show love and diversity in your classroom, if you show that type of thing, that's classified as indoctrination or a violation of a stupid bill, House Bill 1775, which never should have been written. Because once again, though, it's all about control. And now this dictatorship, authoritarian government is now not only telling you what to do with your body for pregnant people, but also what to teach, how to teach. The things that they're going to say is going to be like, well, we want to make sure that everybody, it feels the same. If you look at the wording of House Bill 1775, it's to be anti-discriminatory. No. What it is to create problems and confusion, so much so that you're not even going to deal with the really tough issues in the first place. It's going to censor how you're going to teach either history or whatever else. And so that's frustrating too. What do you think, Mary?
I think that you're right. And I think that the fact that they said, well, you've got to teach the other side. Well, I don't see how the other side of Nazism should be taught other than it was wrong. The other side of slavery, it was wrong. There's no two sides. But I think just my teacher friends, I'm retired. They said, we're afraid to teach history because they may come down on us and take our teaching certificate. So what's happening is they're just not addressing it at all.
I know. Yeah. I have an example of a story. I was interviewed because I'm trying to repeal House Bill 1775. I got a lot of coverage for that, and I was like, y'all are covering me on this. I've had so many cooler bills, really. But they decided, I didn't reach out to the news. They just caught on to it and then decided. And the reason why I did it, I know it's not going to pass, but the reason why I did it is because I want to have that conversation. I want to continue to educate people on exactly how bad and why this was even passed. The fact that this is also copy-pasted language in other conservative states, which I really wouldn't say conservative states, but states dominated by that rural mindset. So like Mississippi, Alabama, places like that.
Ones with the R?
Yeah, pretty much. And so that's the whole point, though. But again, you're talking about that slippery slope to authoritarianism. That's where we're at. And if that doesn't make sense to a conservative, I don't know what will at this point. I don't know what will. Unless, I guess maybe they're thinking about it in the fact that it's like a Christian nation or something like that. I don't know. I've talked to some of my conservative friends. Some of them are very, very, very creeped out by this too. But at the same time, they're like, well, I guess we'll have to just see.
Well, what's interesting when the non-Christians get wind of it and start controlling little things, then it'll be too late, right? They will raise the alarm, but it'll be too late. So what we have to do, what the three of us and everybody who is within earshot and watching us now or watching us later on Facebook or YouTube, we have to re-up the fight. Mm-hmm. That's what we have to do. We have to re-up the fight. So Mary, when you're out there running for Congress, re-up the fight. Jacob, when you're running again, like you're going to have to in a couple of years, but when you're on the floor, re-up the fight and ask us, tell us how we can help you. We all have to re-up the fight. I know we're tired, but tag in and tag out. Go away and be with your family and do what you have to do, but come back for the fight because they're fighting. They're fighting for vouchers and private schools and to keep history dumbed down. They're fighting for these things. We have to match them punch for punch in the fight. We have to be there when someone says the Democrats are just trying to indoctrinate my children. We need to be there asking, what exactly do you think we're going to do and where are we? We need to be there questioning because some people are just going along with what they heard. We need to be there and be that other voice, the other voice of reason to say, what indoctrination are you afraid of? What indoctrination do you think is happening? Let's talk about it. Is your kid coming home talking like a zombie? Let's talk about what it is that you're saying, because I've had conversations in my personal life with people who believe in some of this stuff, and I think, okay, let's talk about what it is that you're telling me you believe. And before we get to the end, I don't have to say gotcha. They say, oh yeah, that doesn't make sense. And so to answer your question, Angela, where do you enlist in the fight? First of all, fight where you are. You have neighbors and friends who believe in some of this crap, because I am probably the most partisan person in the state, and I have neighbors and friends who believe in this stuff. Right. Talk to your neighbors and friends. But additionally, this is the year to sign up and be a precinct officer. Be your neighborhood expert on what's going on in politics. This is the year to sign up to be a county officer, to run for statewide office. This is the year to get involved. So if you need a little bit of structure, how to get involved, look up okdemocrats.org, click on our party, click on your county, and find out who the leadership in your county is now. Ask them how you can help and evaluate if you want to run. This is the year to do that. We have to fight. We can't let up. But I know that folks are busy. So tag in when you can, tag out, go do your life, but come back because we have a big fight. That's my wrap up, but I want to turn it over to Mary Brannon and see what she has to say, and turn it over to Rose Krantz to take us out.
I would just like to say, in Oklahoma, we are the reddest of red states. Every person in Washington now is red. What I have decided to do is, if you don't win, don't get enough votes, count what winning is to you. If you did better, like me, this will be the third time I run, I've done better each time. That's winning to me. If I can change 5 votes, that's winning to me. Don't get caught up in winning or losing. You've got to redefine winning to stay at it. So I will stay at it until there's change. So I'm running 2024, 2026. I'm going to be here because we can't just throw our hands up in the air and say, oh, it's useless. Because if you change 5 votes, if you change 10 votes, it bothers me that the under 30, only 18% voted. Those are college kids. We've got to get them out to vote, especially on reproductive rights. So make sure you tell your constituents, say, instead of asking your teachers, are they teaching critical race theory, say, do you have a college degree? That's what I would say.
Yeah, and Mary, you bring up some great points, especially kind of redefining winning. I really like that because honestly, I don't look at it as win or loss. I look at it as what can we do for the people of Oklahoma. What can I do every day? Listen, I never asked to be a politician. I was a teacher. I was in the classroom. I wanted to be there. That was my goal. I wrote my senior paper on wanting to teach. The reason why I decided to get involved at this level is because of exactly what's going on right now. It's these attacks, these outward attacks. It used to be kind of sneaky. Now it's just openly, hey, we're trying to say that your schools are failing and you're trying to do all this. No. That's not what you're trying to do. Right now, you're trying to get the message out of what truth is. The problem is now truth is so different because we've become so polarized. I'm a Democrat who won in a Republican district. It's an 8% Republican district. And I won by 9 points. Guys, it doesn't happen just by magic. It happens by me getting to know my constituents. It happens by me understanding that not everybody is, whatever you want to call a crazy far-right person. It happens with me understanding and listening. That's the thing. I know people get so frustrated. They're like, Jacob, I try to listen. I try to get to that level and say, okay, why are you the way you are? But when you hear the answers back, don't slam the door. Try to figure out why this person feels like they identify with somebody who is pushing these authoritarian ideas. And then have those conversations and be like, so you sound like somebody who likes small government. Me too. Let's talk about how big our government's gotten. And then you can have those conversations and then move on from there. What holds people back, though, is time. What holds people back is the fact they feel like they can't win. And that's why you have to redefine winning. So great point there. And really, I just want to let everybody know, too, that we are fighting. We have been fighting. Our little caucus that there's 20 of us now. That's up from 19. And we're going to keep on making sure that our voices are heard for you, for the people of Oklahoma who feel like they don't have a voice. That's what we're there for, not to win a debate, not to get a bill passed. That's really tough to do when you're part of the minority party. It's to have those conversations. It's to change the thoughts and minds of these folks who are either believing that this is the way they want to go or acting out of fear. And so that's where it comes from me, just from having conversations out here on the west side of Norman. And hopefully that's something that can be done, hopefully, in other, I would say, suburban battleground areas, because there's going to be suburban battleground areas. And Alicia knows it. Mary, you know it. And what you hit on, and the last thing I want to talk about is the youth vote. My God, people, if you would get out and vote, you would have a different state. You would have somebody who's not an authoritarian dictator. You would have a 2020 Teacher of the Year as our state superintendent of public instruction. Instead, we have Ryan Walters, who openly is saying these nasty lies about our public schools at the top of our public schools. That was done from people that were voting or not voting. So if this pisses you off, make sure you're registered to vote and go out there. I'll give you a ride. I'll help you. I'll do whatever I can.
I will too.
30-year-olds have to get out. Have to. Just have to.
Thank you, Representative Rosecrans. Thank you, Mary Brandon, for joining me and having this real conversation, uncensored and not because you're running for something right now, but because you care about education in Oklahoma. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you're watching and there's a topic you'd like for us to cover, like me to have some experts on, let me know. We're probably going to revisit education because it's such a big deal. But thanks for joining me, and I'll be back here tomorrow at 4:15.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you so much.